One similarity to Chile is that Argentina has a long north to south breadth. The country stretches from a steamy subtropical north to a frigid four seasons in one day south. That was exactly my experience there, by the way. Sunny, then rainy, then snowing, then sunny and breezy, all of this over a few hours. The western border with Chile is the Andes. So just like in Chile, these massive mountains run the length of the country. Then along the east coast, there's a South Carolina-like climate with hot, humid summers and cool, moist winters. Much of Patagonia is in Argentina, as is most of the Pampas. Let's take a look at these geographical components of Argentina. You can see that the country borders Bolivia and Paraguay in the north, and a little piece of Brazil. This part of Argentina is warm most of the year. And again, as you can see, the famous Iguazu Falls is located along the Argentine-Brazil-Paraguayan border zone. What is amazing and unexpected for most people when they are thinking about South America is that the southern part of the continent, Tierra del Fuego, is very close to Antarctica. And owing to that, it's quite chilly most of the time. The cruise ships heading down to Antarctica depart from Ushuaia in the Argentine Tierra del Fuego. Running along the western edge of the country and forming the border with Chile are the Andes. In this part of South America, they are stunning blocks of mountains with glaciers pouring out of U-shaped troughs and emptying into these blue-green lakes. The capital, Buenos Aires, can be hot and humid during the summer and chilly and wet in the winter. Most people who have been to Buenos Aires, BA as it's referred to sometimes, find it to be a fantastic, exciting, all-night urban center. One of the best cities in Latin America and a global hidden gem with regard to culture, music, and food. Southern Argentina is home to Patagonia, which is mostly a cold, windy desert. The area surrounding the Rio de la Plata, that long triangular-shaped inlet of the Atlantic Ocean between Uruguay and Argentina, is known as the Pampas. The Pampas is a mostly flat, fertile grasslands area that both Argentina and Uruguay share, and both of them used for agriculture. One of the things that puts the country on the map, so to speak, this is a geography class after all, is farming. Particularly as it occurs in the Pampas. This is an area that's used for both intensive and extensive agriculture. Intensive agriculture means this: there is a lot of human input or a lot of capital investment on the land, but there is either a lot of food or high-valued food produced per acre. Whereas with extensive agriculture, there is not a lot of human input and not a lot of money invested on the land, and you do not get a lot of food per acre or a lot of high-valued food per acre. Which is this? Take a look at it. And this? What do you think this is? Intensive agriculture includes things like tomatoes, strawberries, and dairy products. These are the types of crops that require a lot of work or a lot of investment, but of course they make a lot of money as well. Extensive agriculture, on the other hand, includes things like grains and grazing. Of course, if you have cattle in Latin America, you also have cowboys. Probably the most famous Latin American cowboys are the gauchos. Really, the gauchos are in Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay. All three of those countries share them. They're generally associated, I think, mostly with Argentina, however. And if you have grazing and gauchos, you also have meat. In Argentina, and really all three of the southern countries, the meat is cooked parrillada, or barbecue. Take a look. This is parrillada. What time is dinner? Well, that's a story. For most Americans who are used to eating dinner at 5, 6, even 7 o'clock in the evening, when they go down to Argentina and they become hungry at 5, 6, or 7 o'clock in the evening and then decide that they're going to go out to dinner, the problem is most of the restaurants are closed at that time. I'm going to tell you about a Tuesday night. Forget about Friday or Saturday. It's crazier. On Tuesday night, you show up at the restaurant at 9 o'clock and it's just opening. They're just setting the tables. And you wave somebody over to try and get a menu. And finally, the menu comes over to you and you order a bottle of wine. And finally, at about 10:30, the food starts to show up. And by 11 o'clock, as you're finishing your meal, the restaurant now is filled with people. And then you go outside and you go for a walk in the evening. And as you walk around in the evening, every restaurant on a Tuesday night is packed with people at midnight. It's a wild way of living. I've read people say, how do these people survive like this? Well, the reality is, it's very difficult to survive like that. It's fun to go down for a couple of weeks, but to try and live your life like that is a very, very difficult thing. I told you all three southern countries have diversity in their economies. One of the ways they add this diversity is with something called import substitution. This is the assembly of products by the local population using imported parts. It sounds a lot like maquiladora, but with maquiladora, the finished product comes to the United States. In the case of import substitution, the final product remains in the country. This allows for a secondary sector. Basically, it works like this. If you are Ford and you want to ship automobiles to Argentina, one thing you cannot get past is that Argentina is a long way away. And so what they do is they take all the parts, they create the parts, they do not assemble the automobile, they ship the parts down to Argentina. When it arrives at the port, you have Argentine longshoremen who unload the ships, they get paid. Then you have Argentine engineers or truckers who bring the parts to a factory, they get paid. And then you have Argentines working in the factory assembling all of these things, from automobiles to the refrigerator to the microwave to the stove to you name it, television sets. And by doing this, all of these people are getting paid. They turn around and they spend their paycheck on the very thing that they just manufactured. Buenos Aires dominates Argentina with about 1/3 of the 45 billion people who live in the country, and because of that, Buenos Aires is clearly a primate city. I know or have known a lot of Argentines, strangely enough, in the United States, I mean this, immigrants to the US. And one of the common themes you hear from them is that as great a country as Argentina is, and it is a great country, the political problems and the ongoing economic issues force you as an Argentine to make a decision. And as one Argentine said to me, if you have any ambition and you have the ability to do it, you leave that country. It's the great push and pull of movement that continues.